Round 20, the Brazilian Grand Prix. What a race. Verstappen wins, Gasly's second in the Toro Rosso, and Carlos Sainz finishes third by the time Lewis Hamilton gets a penalty. But let's start with the race win and a good battle once again between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. So these two have been the standout drivers of 2019 and they've fought it out pretty hard for this race win. Max Verstappen on pole, but Lewis Hamilton was chasing and pleaded with the team not to miss the opportunity of the undercut.
So Verstappen 14-0, Vettel 14-1.
Don't miss this shot.
And the team took it. Hamilton pitted, end of lap 20. Next lap round, Verstappen pitted. He got held up horribly behind Kubica and Williams unsafe released him.
Traffic.
What the f did they do?
And Hamilton scampered through into the lead. But this moment here is where Verstappen won the race, really. He's coming through and he makes a quick, clinical overtake on Charles Leclerc into João, the final proper corner. Now that's crucial because it just means that Hamilton doesn't escape too far up the road. You can just see the closing speed to Hamilton is really huge, and Hamilton's red light is blinking already. He's got no more energy left in the battery. Now he complained about that straight away after, but he's got nothing left to defend in terms of battery power. But he can still defend with the width of his car, which he doesn't do either. So he's caught napping in terms of not having the tools to defend from his engine, but he's not really on it in defending that inside line either. So actually Verstappen has a huge closing speed, using all of his energy to come through. Hamilton's used his to just get the undercut, but he doesn't cover the inside either. So Verstappen, in the end, is actually quite an easy one, this one, and through to what is the net lead of the Grand Prix. It wasn't the last move he had to do for the win though. He had to pass Hamilton again. Late safety car restart, and this was a really strong move. Hamilton's out on more worn medium tyres. Verstappen's on new soft tyres. They go so hard into turn one, and Verstappen just about has enough space to make it through on the outside. Good fair racing from the two. I was waiting for that to be a shunt with Hamilton holding on, but he gave Verstappen enough room, and the Dutchman made a lovely pass. And that one did win in the race. You just feel though, if Hamilton hadn't have been repassed after that first pit stop, he would have been in Verstappen's position. The two of them were very even on pace. Verstappen could never really break away from Hamilton. The biggest the gap got pretty much in the entire race was 3 seconds. And if Hamilton had been that lead car, he would have been able to call the shots similar to how Verstappen was. In the end, Red Bull were reacting quickly and they only just managed to survive the second undercut attempt as well. But if Hamilton hadn't have lost that track position there on that first outlap for Verstappen, the race could have been completely different for him. So that was Verstappen sorted out front, and the race was intriguing, but really came alive after Valtteri Bottas had an engine failure, safety car cooled, bunched the whole pack up. And what made it come alive even more was the two Ferraris getting into each other, fighting over 4th position. Charles Leclerc on slightly fresher soft tyres against Sebastian Vettel. Let's go on board with him and see how this one unfolded. So he's a long way back as we come over the start-finish line. He's got, again, a big closing speed. And this move here, late lunge to the inside, Vettel's never seen this one coming. Leclerc, huge confidence on the brake, sees that gap, goes for it. Brilliant move, a lot of conviction, made it stick. But on the way back, we switch to Sebastian Vettel. He tucks in through turn 2 and round turn 3. He's going to get the DRS as well, and he's so close behind his teammate still. Leclerc just about gives him enough space on the outside, and Vettel looks like he's home and dry coming through with the DRS, but he's not. For this one, the outside shot shows a lot more clearly what's happened here. So if I pause it here, you can see Vettel is right on the white line, trying to go around his teammate. He's just about got enough space. Now, if I just let this go slowly through, you can see at the point of impact, now look where Vettel's car is. There's now a good 1.5 meters to his right-hand side. And look at the trajectory of the car as well. It's pointing towards the left-hand side of the track. He's really coming across on Leclerc, who's just held his ground, perhaps more than he should have done. And there's contact, damage for both cars, front right suspension for Leclerc, rear left puncture for Sebastian Vettel, both Ferraris out of the Grand Prix.
What the hell? The puncture, what the hell is he doing? Sorry. Puncture. Fine, good, fine.
Really, it's come from Vettel moving from the right-hand side towards the path of Leclerc, who's held his ground and there's been contact. I have to say, for the amount of contact there is, the end result is bad because it's a slight touch between the two. I think it's the angle that Vettel's left rear hits the right front of Leclerc. It's not completely side to side, it's a little bit with a forward momentum. I think that does the damage to Leclerc's suspension, and Vettel gets his puncture as well. But for me, this just reminds me of one particular incident, an obvious one. Turkey 2010, Vettel with a teammate, and that time it was Mark Webber. So here they are, they're fighting over the lead. Webber's left just enough space. Again, Vettel's right on the white line, he doesn't want to be there. So he tries to inch across, but you can see from this shot, he's coming across relatively hard in the end towards Mark Webber, who's just simply holding his line down towards the hairpin. And they touch very similar way. Vettel's not happy about it, Webber's furious, and they throw away a 1-2 result. Now this one wasn't a 1-2 result, but it was teammates crashing on a straight, fighting too hard with each other. You can't be crashing with your teammate at the best of times. On a straight, it's ridiculous. So really, for me, the blame lies with Sebastian Vettel. In both incidents, he's the aggressor. He's the one that's basically driven into the teammate and caused that result. But I have to say, I think there's some responsibility for Charles Leclerc. And let's look at an earlier incident for him as well, on lap 1. He's coming around, he's past Ricciardo, comes around Lando Norris and just does this jink to the left-hand side as they come towards Sao, the final corner. And Norris has to quickly react to get around the Ferrari, who's put a bit of a squeeze on effectively on a straight line there. And they get away with that one. An example of why that's not great driving comes from last year in Singapore. Now this one was Sergio Perez on Sergei Sirotkin, and having a big fight for many laps. And then finally, again, round a left-hander, Perez on the outside, does that jink towards the left, and he hits Sirotkin. And that's not dissimilar to what Leclerc actually did to Lando Norris on the first lap. The only difference is Sirotkin held his line, and Norris quickly moved to the left to avoid it. Maybe Perez's jink was a little bit harder than Leclerc's, but there's not much in it. Perez was given a drive-through penalty for that, really hefty penalty. And, you know, it's not a great bit of driving. So Leclerc on lap 1, he didn't need to be doing that big dive towards Lando Norris on the straight line. Another example of Charles Leclerc on a straight line comes from a few races ago, back before the summer break in Hungary. Now the best view of this one actually comes from Sebastian Vettel just behind. You've got Leclerc on the right-hand side, Bottas on the left-hand side, lap 1 of the Grand Prix. And look, Leclerc starts to come across and puts a big squeeze on Valtteri Bottas. And there you go, touch. And you know what? It's very similar to the Vettel-Leclerc incident as well. So, in all of that, Leclerc was lucky to get away with that one and Bottas was the man with the puncture. This time the shoe's on the other foot. Vettel's the one put the squeeze on. He shouldn't do. It's your teammate, especially, you shouldn't be doing that to your teammate. There was room for both of them to race, and probably Vettel would have had the corner anyway with the DRS and the better closing speed. So the fault is on Vettel, but Leclerc, he could have given Vettel more space, and quite frankly, he's driven quite similarly in his past as well this year, only a few races ago. So I don't think he can be too finger pointing towards his teammate on that one. I think they're both in the wrong. The first time they've really raced each other properly hard on track, they had a bit at the end of Budapest. They had a bit in Bahrain, although there was team orders meant to be applied when Charles Leclerc came through on Vettel. Of course, there's been controversy as well with the Singapore undercut that Leclerc wasn't happy with.
What the hell? I mean,
Charles, that was the best things we could do. Head down, the race is long.
Yeah, my head is down and it will be down until the race. I just want to let you know my feeling.
There was the slipstreaming tactics already in Monza, there was the team orders in Russia. There's been so many cases of these two not happy with each other. Tensions just bubbling away under the surface. Well, not anymore. That's definitely now, for all to see, not very happy campers. They need to sort that out, because if they want to head into next year with the mentality, the teamwork to try and beat Mercedes, or even Verstappen, they can't be affording to take points off each other like this. So, both Ferraris out of the race. Valtteri Bottas, engine gone, out of the race. What a great chance for Alex Albon to get a podium in the Red Bull, and he was all set to take it. Hamilton took a late pit stop. Slightly odd call from Mercedes. They were trying to put some pressure on Verstappen for the win. New set of soft tyres might do that, but he lost too many places. Albon and Pierre Gasly came through, and Hamilton only had 2 laps to try and make up for that. He passed Gasly immediately, so did a really good restart around the outside, perfectly timed, straight past Pierre Gasly without losing anything. But the next move was a little bit too rushed, really, for Hamilton. Into Bico de Pato, turn 10. And you can do an overtake here, but Hamilton's a fair way back coming in. Albon leaves the door wide open, and Hamilton has a little tentative look on the inside and just clips his rival round. Albon sent spinning out of second place. Heartbreak on the penultimate lap.
All he has to do
Yeah, I know, mate. I'm sorry.
For Hamilton, I think he went for this because he's still eyeing that race win. He doesn't want to sit behind Albon for a corner more than he has to. And he's got a lap and a bit to try and chase Max Verstappen on slightly fresher tyres if he can do it. So he's still gunning for that race win, probably because he's trying to make amends for losing that race lead much earlier on. If we look through it then, we can see Albon's left the door quite open coming into the corner. He's on the racing line, basically. And Hamilton sees that and has a little look. But if we switch to Hamilton, you can see he's a good car length or so back. And then he goes for the inside, but it's really, really tentative. And if I pause it there, he only really got his front wheels alongside Albon's rear wheels. He never really had command of that inside of the corner. He didn't really commit enough. If he committed harder, it might have been a bigger crash, but he also might have got away with that on the inside. But he's left in this horrible halfway house where he's just sort of dangling his left front at the apex of the corner. Albon comes across completely unaware by the looks of it that Hamilton's there and gets a punt from the right rear. Albon maybe should have been a bit more wary that Hamilton might be coming, but ultimately for me, Hamilton never really committed to the inside, just a tentative look. In fairness, he didn't argue with his 5-second penalty, he admitted it straight away and went and apologised to Albon for that one. I think he would have been pretty gutted himself actually taking out Albon from that podium, knowing what it feels like as a young driver, rookie, to try and step on the podium. I have to say, real shame the stewards didn't issue this penalty sooner. They got the penalty right, 5-second penalty. Would have been lovely for Carlos Sainz to get on that podium because he had an absolute stormer of a drive from 20th on the grid, some beautiful overtakes. Pick of the bunch was on Sergio Perez down the inside, bit risky, got away with it, good commitment, we like to see that. He just drove such a superb race. Finished in 4th on 42 lap old medium tyres, really good stint holding off the Alfa Romeos behind on soft tyres.
Yes! Great job, mate. P4. Who thought it? I am a big fan of your work.
Oh, can't believe it, guys.
Unbelievable drive. P20 to P4.
I cannot believe it. As simple as that. Wow!
One of the drives of the season, maybe, from Carlos Sainz, and how great it would have been if he could have stood on the podium at the end of all that. The main other incident of note, and another steward's decision, was Daniel Ricciardo and Kevin Magnussen clashing, turn 4, lap 8. Ricciardo trying to come through, Magnussen struggling, he's lost a couple of places in quick succession.
Idiot.
Ricciardo opens up the DRS, harder to overtake here. Magnussen's also got DRS behind Lance Stroll, but Ricciardo nonetheless has a bit of closing speed with the slipstream, goes to the inside. If I pause it there, you can see compared to Hamilton, Ricciardo's much further down the inside actually. He's almost side by side with Magnussen. He's got his front wheels alongside Magnussen's cockpit even slightly further forward, whereas Hamilton had his front wheels alongside Albon's rear wheels. That's the difference. He's probably got a right to some space on the inside of this corner. Magnussen comes across and maybe gives him just enough space on the apex, but he's really squeezed Daniel Ricciardo. And actually, if we just roll it back, we can see as Magnussen comes across, Ricciardo just gets his left front onto the white line and then the curb. That helps lock it up as well as having an armful of lock to try and avoid Magnussen. And then he just comes across, moves about a metre off the apex curb where Magnussen still is, contact. Magnussen is sent spinning and Ricciardo has front wing damage, has to pit for an early stop. I'm surprised this one was a penalty, I have to say. I think this one was a racing incident. You could maybe put more blame on Ricciardo, but Magnussen gave him a big squeeze. He could have given him a lot more space because Ricciardo was that far up the inside. Ricciardo didn't really wash too far wide. He washed maybe a little bit off the apex where Magnussen was. I would put more blame with Ricciardo if I had to choose, but let them race. We want to see overtakes, and the occasional incident happens like this. It's not as clear-cut as the Hamilton-Albon one, and for me, I'm surprised that Ricciardo actually picked up a pen for this, and the stewards didn't feel the need to talk to him about it either. So, misfortune for many drivers out there, which put Pierre Gasly into this stunning second place. Really, really happy for him. obviously had a really tough start to the year, wasn't really working out for him at Red Bull. But since his switch to Toro Rosso, he's been so strong. Q3 for the last 4 races, points in 5 out of 8, a podium, a second place even in Brazil. Suddenly he's looking like the real deal once again. Really good stuff, best of the rest throughout the Grand Prix. Just about managed to outdrag the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton to the line as well to secure that second. Screaming like I've never heard anyone scream in a Formula 1 car when he found out that that's the finishing order. Chuffed for him. And for Max Verstappen, of course, winning the race a year after he should have won the Grand Prix when Esteban Ocon hit him from a lap down. This one was redemption day for Max Verstappen. One more race left. I'm sure it's going to be all action again. Why not? Championship's already done. It was done for Brazil. So we can hope that one more final blowout, everyone gives it everything, and we have a cracker in Abu Dhabi.